Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you had a restful weekend, and I wish you all a productive week ahead. We begin, as we usually do, with the economy. Today, Monday morning, local time, the People's Bank of China, China's central bank, announced it had slashed the benchmark 5-year loan prime rate, LPR, a key reference rate for mortgage loans, as leadership stepped up efforts to stabilize the property market. The LPR was lowered from 3.85% to 3.6%, while the 1-year lending rate was also cut from 3.35% to 3.1%. For Chinese households with mortgage loans of 1 million yuan, $140,000, the monthly installment payment would be reduced by around 141.5 yuan, about $20, after the cut to the 5-year LPR. The rates were last cut in July. Zhang Zhiwei, chief economist at Pinpoint Asset Management, explained in a note today, quote, "The rate cut is broadly in line with market expectations. It is an encouraging sign that the monetary policy is moving in the right direction to fight deflation." End quote. Of course, this comes as Beijing goes all out to stabilize the years-long slump in the housing market. And like so many of the measures before, analysts argue that this still isn't enough and that these movements need to come from the fiscal side. Indeed, Huang Zichun, an economist at Capital Economics, expressed in a note that monetary moves are, quote, "unlikely to boost loan demand much," end quote, explaining that weak credit demand is the main constraint, and adding, quote, "without a rebound in inflation, which we don't foresee, real lending rates will remain restrictive unless policy rates are cut by a lot more. The heavy lifting will need to come from fiscal policy," end quote. As regular viewers know, we need to wait until the upcoming National People's Congress to get any idea what that fiscal policy support will look like. Next up for the economy. One of the hot topics at the moment is that the economic trajectory of China is showing concerning parallels with Japan's post-bubble stagnation of the 1990s, often referred to as Japanification. This phenomenon is characterized by prolonged low growth, deflation, and adverse demographic trends. In recent weeks, commentators have pointed out a striking indicator of this trend, with the narrowing yield gap between China's and Japan's 30-year government bonds. As at the weekend, China's 30-year bond yield was just slightly above Japan's, a sign of China's economic slowdown, especially when compared to Japan's recent success in combating deflation. The similarities between China's current situation and Japan's after its asset bubble burst are numerous. Both countries experienced rapid economic growth before hitting structural challenges, such as an aging population, high debt levels, and weak demand. China, once expected to surpass the US as the world's largest economy by 2035, now faces a series of economic hurdles. Since 2022, China has begun losing ground, with a struggling labour market, declining profitability among firms, and a sluggish real estate sector, all contributing to a less optimistic outlook for growth. China's rapid economic expansion from 2010 through 2020, when it added around $11.6 trillion to its GDP, is now overshadowed by concerns of a long-term economic slump. The country's deleveraging process has only just begun, and experts predict the structural challenges will persist until at least 2030. These challenges, including high indebtedness, will weigh on both consumption and investment. The term Japanification is often used to describe the combination of economic stagnation, low inflation, and deteriorating demographics, all of which China is currently grappling with. Analysts, including those from Barclays, highlight the eerie resemblance between China's economic struggles and Japan's post-bubble crisis, including the rise of zombie companies, youth unemployment, and deflationary pressures. Though China has more resources and potential advantages compared to Japan in the 1990s, such as learning from Japan's mistakes, it is yet to fully address these deep-rooted issues. As regular viewers have seen, despite efforts from Beijing to reinvigorate the economy, the challenges of demographic decline, high debt, and slow growth remain formidable. It's no wonder that an increasing number of commentators are asking whether China can avoid Japan's prolonged period of stagnation. This will be the story we watch closely in the coming months and years here on China Update, and I hope you will follow along on that journey. If you do, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're on top of these updates as they're released, and if you're enjoying today's video and getting some value from it, don't forget to hit the like button. Next up, in a special commentary published in The Diplomat, Robert Barnett, a professor of modern Tibetan history and senior research associate at SOAS University of London and affiliate lecturer at King's College London, published a long piece called "The Politics of China's Land Appropriation in Bhutan." China has built 22 villages and settlements within Bhutan's customary borders, and there is no sign that Bhutan can do anything about it or that Beijing will face any costs. In the piece, Barnett argues that China's dealings with Bhutan highlight a stark contrast between rhetoric and actions in the realm of international diplomacy. China has long professed a desire for peaceful resolutions and formal diplomatic ties with Bhutan, aiming to balance Bhutan's close relationship with India. While China and Bhutan have maintained friendly relations and China has consistently received Bhutan's support in international arenas, a worrying reality has emerged. China has appropriated, he says, parts of Bhutan's territory despite formal agreements to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Barnett argues that China's annexation of Bhutanese land began about 8 years ago, starting with the construction of villages and settlements in 2 areas within Bhutan's customary borders. As of now, China has built 22 villages housing around 7,000 people, claiming about 2% of Bhutan's land. This has raised alarm, given that both countries signed a treaty in 1998 agreeing not to unilaterally change their shared border. Despite these actions, Bhutan seems powerless to reverse the situation, and China has faced no significant consequences for what he calls aggressive territorial expansion. Barnett explains that the villages are primarily in 2 regions. In western Bhutan, 8 villages were built in an area ceded to Bhutan by Tibet's 13th Dalai Lama in the early 20th century. This region includes the strategically important Doklam Plateau, which China views as critical in its confrontations with India. The position of Doklam would give China a significant military advantage. In the northeast of Bhutan, China has constructed 14 more villages, although this area holds little military value. China's claim to these northeastern territories only surfaced in the 1980s, and its primary aim seems to have been diplomatic pressure on Bhutan to concede western lands, including Doklam. Barnett argues that China's strategy in the northeast appears to be coercive. In the 1990s, Beijing proposed a package deal offering to drop its claims in the northeast if Bhutan ceded western areas, including Doklam. The northeastern settlements acted as a threat. Bhutan would lose even more territory if they did not comply. While Bhutan did not fully concede, it has quietly altered its maps to exclude some areas previously shown as Bhutanese, a clear indication of China's influence. Bhutan's leadership, despite previous denials, seems to have accepted that it cannot reclaim the occupied lands. China's construction in Bhutan mirrors its tactics in the South China Sea, Barnett argues, where it has created, quote, facts on the ground through island building, end quote. In both cases, China uses this method to assert territorial claims and consolidate power. However, the northeastern Bhutanese villages differ in that they were not initially strategic assets but diplomatic leverage. Despite Bhutan nearing an agreement with China, construction has continued, with several new villages built in the past 2 years, potentially punishing Bhutan for its inability to meet China's demands. Bhutan's relationship with India complicates matters too, Barnett explains. A 2007 treaty between the 2 countries prevents Bhutan from ceding Doklam to China without India's consent. This has effectively trapped Bhutan in a situation where it cannot satisfy China's demands, even if it wanted to. China's land grabs seem to penalize Bhutan for its reliance on India, and Beijing's expansion into Bhutanese territory has not provoked significant response from India, apart from the Doklam issue, which India sees as a strategic concern. China's annexations reflect a broader shift in its foreign policy toward hard power tactics, Barnett says, seen in other territorial disputes, such as in Taiwan and the Philippines. In Bhutan's case, the lack of international attention or consequences for China's actions has made the situation worse. Major global powers, apart from India, have largely ignored China's encroachments. Despite Bhutan being a small and powerless country, the international community's silence sends a troubling message, he says. Land annexation by a major power can be pursued without cost. In the end, Barnett concludes, China's strategy of land appropriation seems to be a cost-free way of extracting concessions from Bhutan, cementing its influence while damaging Bhutan's sovereignty. The lack of external pushback only encourages China to continue using territorial annexation as a tool in its relations with smaller neighbours. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a great Monday, and I will see you all tomorrow.